8 para escuchar toda la programación en español. We also want to give a big thank you to our interpreters, Catalina Nieto and Alejandra Esparza. Thank you both for helping us out today. And looks like we have a pretty great showing, so we're just going to go ahead and get started now. Welcome everyone again, and thank you for joining us. We are so excited to really share this joint effort by the Council of Latin American Advancement and Mijente. We came together to co-author a timely report on the current economic and health crisis that Latinos are facing and struggling with across the country because of COVID-19. To date, 22 million people have filed for unemployment in the last 5 to 6 weeks. I'm going to repeat that number again, 22 million people. Most claims have been filed in California. However, if we would break down those numbers by workforce ratio percentage, Pennsylvania actually has the highest claims based on the numbers in their workforce at 16% of all their workforce at this moment who have already filed for unemployment. Then they are followed by Ohio and then California. Latinos are the second highest group with the most deaths due to COVID-19 to date. So what does this economic and health crisis mean to Latinos right now? And why are we dying at such high numbers? We know that we are 20% of the entire workforce, and out of the approximately 12 million undocumented workers, 75% of them are undocumented. 75% of those undocumented workers are Latino. We are young, we are old people, we're women, we're all genders. And our speakers today are gonna talk about why are we being impacted in such disproportionate numbers, and what does this mean to our gente and our community? So our first speaker is Yanira Merino. Yanira is the president of the Labor Council of Latin American Advancement, LCLAA. They are the leading national organization for Latinos and their families, focusing on organizing Latinos in the labor movement. So I'll pass it on to Yanira.
Gracias. ¿Es this okay? Okay. Well, gracias, Neri. Buenas tardes. Thank you for joining us. As our nation faces these unprecedented times, the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement has been focused on shedding light on a variety of issues regarding Latino and immigrant workers and the fight against COVID-19. We know that people of color are dying from the coronavirus at a disproportionate rate. We also know the racial minorities are amongst the hardest hit economically, and that they make a disproportionate share of the workers and industries where layoffs are taking place. Many of them remain employed as essential workers. People in the construction industry, food industry, post office, to name a few. These workers are keeping us going while we're staying home safe. And maybe some of us even bored. We have to recognize the following, that they don't have other option but to work. Working from home is a privilege at this moment, and only few of us have it. So these workers are putting their lives at risk to earn a living. Let me share with you some of the socioeconomic conditions the Latino faced before this crisis began. In 2016, Latinos represented an estimated 16% of the labor force. And it is estimated that by 2043, this segment of the population will constitute 1/3 of the total population in our country. This 16.8% of Latinos and immigrant workers are oftentimes concentrated in a growing low-wage economy. And in 2018, non-union Latinos workers earn an average of $657 per week. How can you have savings to face this pandemic right now? In general, workers of color are more likely to get paid poverty wages as compared to white workers. In 2017, 1 out of 4 Latino workers lived below poverty line. This is twice as much as the national poverty rate. So why are these numbers important, and why are we looking at the past? Simple, because these statistics have already played a pivotal role in what is happening today to the Latino immigrant workers as a result of this pandemic. As of August 2019, the unemployment rate among Latinos hover at a 4.2 above national average of 3.7%. Up to now, there have been some 22 million people filing for unemployment. Nady shared with us those statistics already. Half of our Latino and immigrant communities have reported that they or someone they know has either lost their job or taken a pay cut. It is important to highlight that this number is unquestionably larger because the official unemployment count failed to include those who have not been able to file for unemployment due to the system being overwhelmed. And also, these numbers do not account for undocumented workers who have lost their jobs and are denied such a coverage. It took over a decade for Latino community to recover from the Great Recession of 2007 and 2009. This slow recovery the Latinos face significantly impeded their ability to ascend into the middle class, thus eroding our nation's middle class and increase income disparity between the richest and the poorest people in this country. Having said this, it is urging the Latino and immigrant working families get included in any stimulus effort led by our government, as it is also crucial for them to have access to medical attention and work protection. This is not the time to discriminate. If COVID-19 has proven anything, it is that our nation depends on these men and women who are in the front lines. We demand a comprehensive relief package that not only protect all workers of colors, but also to safeguard their livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanira. It's so important to just remember where our community was already at as we take a look of then the impact this current situation is going to have and is already having in our communities. Let's hear now from Christian, a Mijente member from Chicago, who's also a worker leader in an Amazon warehouse. And he's going to share with us more about what is his experience right now under this crisis.
Hey, Mijente, hey everyone. Yeah, I work in Chicago at a Amazon delivery station in Pilsen at 28th and Western. And my experience there is the experience, I guess, of an essential worker. All of Amazon continues running, and they've basically been putting our lives at risk. With many of these Amazon centers have been serving as basically as vectors of infection, and Amazon was very slow to take any sort of real precautions so that we would stay healthy. When coronavirus pandemic started, They basically just continued operating just like as if nothing was going on. And it wasn't really until we had to take action that they started making changes. So it was after we found out that there was one coronavirus case that we called for an emergency meeting between us, like as coworkers. We had already formed an organization by the name of DCH1 Amazonians United, our own worker organization. Just for the past year, you know, starting with fighting for the right to regular and clean access to water, fighting for air conditioning, fighting for better wages, fighting for healthcare, fighting for respect from our managers, fighting for paid time off, which we were already promised but were being denied. We had already formed this organization, and so like when we heard about these coronavirus cases, we were like, well, we got to do something. We got to do something now. We basically drafted our demands, formed a petition, launched the petition, got 100 signatures on that petition, and then you know, still saw that Amazon was not taking this issue seriously, that they were acting with complete disregard for our lives and the lives of our loved ones. So we decided that we needed to go on strike, that we needed to do safety strikes. And that's what we did. We went on strike on Monday evening, on Tuesday morning, on Friday evening, and on a Saturday morning. The police were called by Amazon management. The management refused to take our petition. They refused to listen to our concerns. Just a complete disrespect and disregard, even for our voices, even for our concerns. We were demanding that Amazon shut down the facility and clean it up, and pay us for 2 weeks of quarantine pay. I mean, the only thing that we would have met with were threats, threats of termination, threats of write-ups, and you know, the site lead Dominic Wilkerson and all the other managers too. They would just call the police on us and just yell at us from you know, the police cars, from the police bullhorns, and the police would be there, you know, threatening us with citations, saying, oh, we need to stay 6 feet apart, we can't be there, we can't be on private property, etc., etc. And what happened after we engaged in these strikes? First, many of our coworkers chose to not go in and join our strikes, and that felt good because we kept many of our coworkers safe. Second, Amazon was not able to run all of the volume that it wanted to. And a lot of this volume that Amazon is running is not essential goods. They say that it's essential goods, it's not. And so I think we're also forcing Amazon to actually do what it says that it's doing publicly, because also after the strike, they started providing masks. You know, they started providing more personal protective equipment. They started staggering our breaks so that there's less interaction, less, you know, the coming within 6 feet of each other. So we definitely made things better. And the coworkers that, you know, stayed home or didn't go into work really felt powerful, because we were taking action and we were doing something about the conditions that we were facing. And you know, we didn't have to wait for anybody to come save us. You know, we were there, and when we were saving ourselves, we were taking care of ourselves because we need to take care of each other during this time. So now Amazon has made some changes. It's not enough. We're still demanding a lot more. You know, we're still demanding that Amazon actually only ship essential goods, because there's so many needs that our people have, that our economy has, that are not being met. And Amazon, you know, having control over 50% of the online marketplace, has a lot of power to really prioritize the manufacturing and distribution of goods that, you know, our healthcare workers, all the other essential workers, all the other vulnerable people that are at home. Amazon can prioritize shipping that stuff out and being a company that is providing for society's needs right now, instead of just for Bezos' greed and for all, you know, all these other managers that just want to make their bonuses and whatnot, and treat this like you know, like as if it was a Christmas time again for them, you know, the peak. So After we took a stand, we're seeing a lot of retaliation from Amazon. You know, they're trying to scare us, they're trying to intimidate us, they're giving us write-ups, targeting us for things like violating the 6-foot policy, supposedly while on strike, even though the managers were yelling out their threats to us as they were like standing shoulder to shoulder. And we're seeing other write-ups for other things that Amazon never enforces. They're just enforcing it on us. They've written some coworkers up for supposed insubordination. You know, they've written another coworker up for supposedly not scanning their badge in when we were going in to present our demands. So it's just clear retaliation for engaging in protected concerted activity. And they're trying to scare us, they're trying to divide us, they're trying to stop our movement from growing, but it's too late. The waves are already made, and workers all over the United States and all over the world have signed our petition. We have over 5,000 or 6,000 signatures, and they're reaching out to us. They're saying, you know, we have 15 cases of coronavirus at our warehouse. We have, you know, 10 cases, and management isn't doing anything. What can we do? We saw that you all took action. How can we do that? And so now we're turning to our coworkers wherever they're at, and we're helping them figure out how they can take action, how they can get organized, and how they can start fighting back. And it's horrible, it's dark times, but it's also very beautiful times, because we're just seeing more and more workers, like things just starting to click, and people seeing that capitalism is not a system that is meant for us. It's meant for the rich at the top, and that we need to save ourselves, that we need to take action, and we need to protect ourselves. You know, I was talking with a coworker, Miss Betty, last night. My warehouse is, I would say, 75% Black, maybe 15% Latinx. Miss Betty's over 70 years old, a Black woman, and she's managers are over here. You know, these big white managers look like frat guys, are over here writing her up, pushing her to scan faster, when she's already doing everything she can, when her life is at risk by just going in there. You know, she's just going in there trying to pay for her house. And so it's really ridiculous, and people are really getting fed up, and it's on us. It's on us to begin, you know, helping out and organizing, helping our people get organized and make those demands wherever we can, to make this society work for us.
Thank you so much, Christian, for joining us. I know you've been having the night shifts, so it really meant a lot that you would make time to be up and like sharing with us during this afternoon. So thank you, and all your coworkers out there in Chicago fighting for each other. Like you said, we know that, you know, the title of this report is COVID-19 doesn't discriminate, but the government does. And so this is the conversation we need to be having right now. I would like to introduce next our Rosa Lozano. Rosa is the National Strategic Organizer with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, IUPAD. IUPAD represents about 200,000 workers in the construction industry in both the US and Canada. Rosa?
Thank you, Nady. Well, first, I'd just like to thank Mijente, LCLAA, and the many workers that shared their testimonies to uplift this issue, right, of how COVID is impacting the Latinx community. And Christian, thank you as well for joining us. So this issue in particular is very personal for our union, because our workforce and in construction overall is increasingly Latino. It's increasingly immigrant and undocumented. And what that means to us in the midst of this pandemic is that since construction workers have been deemed essential in many places across the country, they're being forced into making an impossible choice, which is to risk their lives and the lives of their families in order to support themselves. And in the best cases, are being exposed to COVID-19 despite having personal protective gear because it is extremely difficult to practice social distancing on a work site. In the worst of cases, they're intentionally being sacrificed by their employers in the name of profit because their lives weren't really valued before this pandemic. And so we can't expect that they will be valued now. We've seen this play out from anywhere from lack of safety gear to lack of safety training, to wage theft, to even deaths on the job that were non-COVID related. So we definitely can't expect that that tide would turn now, especially when it comes to providing protective gear that's already limited for frontline workers. So given this reality, making the lack of access to potentially life-saving testing and treatment to workers because of immigration status is even more egregious, right? And in fact, for our union, we've already felt the impact of this crisis within our own family, as we've had 8 members so far die from COVID-19. And of the 8, 5 were Latino workers that were still working when they fell ill. And that's Luciano Gomez, Fernando Gallego, Jose Vasquez Herrera, Travis Graham, Bob Rousseau, Kilder Diaz, Victor Torres, and Roy Tabios. And this is just that we know of, and this is in our union. I can't imagine what those numbers are in a non-union, non-organized workforce. So for many of us, I mean, for many of you, you might ask yourselves, given that, you know, why would these workers take this risk and continue to work? And, you know, our response is that, well, by nature of the construction industry, if you don't work, you don't get paid. And if you're fortunate enough to have any kind of benefits, either directly provided by your employer or through a union contract, those two, let's say, for example, health insurance, those benefits are also dependent on your ability to work. And this is a reality that has been exacerbated by COVID-19, as 50% of work sites, construction work sites across the country have already shut down. And we are expecting nearing 90%, you know, at the peak of this pandemic, or, you know, before it's over. And while Congress is saying that it's attempting to address this issue, what we know from talking directly to our membership and to workers on the ground, on the front lines, is that, you know, the stimulus relief is excluding many, many workers inside and outside of unions. And either by leaving them completely out, partially out, but in the end, just the same were impacted across the board. And so as an added layer to that reality is that, you know, we're staring up at the bottom of a barrel of a gun as we're awaiting 2 very critical court decisions from the Supreme Court and the Ninth Circuit Court around DACA and TPS, which could strip potentially 300,000 working people and their families from status. And the result of that would be a widening pool of people that are denied critical relief and recovery from this pandemic. So our union, in the midst of all of this, is advocating and supporting efforts in Congress to expand Medicaid for all workers, to extend and subsidize COBRA for working people that are in real time losing access to their health insurance because of massive layoffs, that they make life-saving COVID-19 testing and related treatment available and accessible to anyone and everyone that needs it, regardless of immigration status. that union workers' pensions are protected, that, you know, it's not just the corporations that get bailed out, and that frontline workers get safety protections, right? And that means, you know, having, you know, investing in OSHA oversight. It means, yes, personal protective gear, safety training, anti-retaliation protections, to Christian's point, right? In addition to higher pay for working during this crisis and paid sick leave, just to name a few. But we are also still, and will continue to, no matter what, do what we do best, which is organize, organize, organize. Because as is true on a construction job site, it is certainly true in our society that we are only as safe as the most vulnerable worker or person in our universe. And that's our driver. And we're gonna continue to push forward, both in advocacy and in demand of workers' rights, and to hold accountable those that played political games and sacrificed our lives, right, for the sake of profit and maintaining the status quo. So I'll end with that.
Thank you, Rosa. I really feel like we can't really go on with this conversation with just like honoring the lives of those workers and every single one of the workers out there that is putting their lives at risk every day because they have no choice, because we have failed them completely. So I'm gonna ask everyone to just, let's do a minute in silence to remember these workers. Thank you, everyone. And, you know, for all those workers, presente, you know, they're going to be forever presente in this fight and the future generations to come. At this point, I would like to introduce our final speaker, Marisa Franco. Marisa is Executive Director of Mijente. Mijente is an online and offline political home for thousands of Latinx people across the country. So, Marisa.
Gracias, Neri. Thank you. And greetings to everybody. It's great to be with you all today, and appreciate everybody's words. You know, we were really, it felt important to partner with LCLAA in this report and publishing, and thank you to everybody's work to make it happen. I think the report is trying to paint a real-time picture of the impact of this virus, because as there is a debate raging about when to open up again, and a debate raging about relief and who deserves relief, we can't lose sight of the very specific impacts. And so I hope folks can like hold that, to put something like this as a crisis is raging. We did our best to paint an accurate and real picture, and shine a light on communities that no one is really thinking of, and are at forgotten even in times of not a crisis like this. And it really, it's important to then highlight, you know, Yanita's words at the beginning of this, talking about the recession that happened over a decade ago, and that the reality through all of our lived experience that lived through that is that crises, and in this case a virus, spreads through the existing forms of exploitation, existing oppressions. They're repeated, and so we can't lose sight of that, and that has to be front and center in conversations about relief. And this report is looking to really communicate what that impact is. I think what we can see with COVID, a couple of things that maybe we can draw, that in prior to this, maybe wasn't as clear, even though it's still true. One is that how interdependent we are. as people, as communities, that we actually need each other. Two, we are only as strong as the most vulnerable among us. In this crisis, if government, if businesses, if bosses continue to think that they can, that we will overcome this and it will not dramatically weaken us in a very significant structural way, if they think they can do that with only helping this strata of the population and not all of us, they are very mistaken. And last, that a thriving economy is not healthy billionaires. It's not made up of healthy billionaires. It is made up of healthy, stable communities. You cannot have a thriving economy without that. And so as these debates rage on about, you know, when to open up again and who deserves relief and how much money is it and who gets bailed out and who doesn't, I think we have to hold that, you know, once the shelter in place is lifted, there is going to be it's not going to go back to normal for a very long time. And, you know, this report in essence is trying to actually name how, like, if we're not taking into account how people are being impacted, then we cannot develop solutions that adequately respond to the crisis. And Latinos are very much being impacted by this. And, you know, we as Mijente, you know, this is both shining a light, but also it's a call to action. There is a political fight in this country. We have an election coming up. And what we have seen thus far is that Latinx people are very called and are very moved by political agendas, by political fights that actually solve and respond to the crises of our time. So to us, I think very important demands to lift up is the cancellation of rent, mortgage payments, evictions, a demand for universal health care for all people, and specifically reproductive health care and access to that, a moratorium on deportations, that does not then include a ramp up of surveillance and the erosion of our civil liberties, release of folks in federal prison and detention centers, and a pathway to citizenship for all immigrants in this country. We're also calling for full parity for Puerto Rico and a cancellation of the debt in the island, a cancellation of student debt. Latinos are the youngest demographic in this country. Therefore, what is happening to our future leaders in terms of access to education, what kind of education people have, and what kind of debt they're in as a result of seeking that education needs to be addressed. And then finally, we can't lose sight that this election, it is coming in November, and we are calling for the creation of a task force that looks at how is it that everyone who is eligible to vote can register to vote, that people can safely vote, and that those votes are counted. You know, we cannot, part of this report is shining the light and part of it is a call to action, and our community has been in motion. And, you know, this is why the story that Cristiana is sharing is so motivating, that in a time where folks are literally fearful or like, you know, you're going to work and you're not sure what's going to happen as a result of going to work just to try to earn a living, that they're still organizing. And I think that is leadership that we should all follow, that in this time, we don't have to wait for someone to give a damn about our community. We have to give a damn, and we have to do something about it. If we, you know, we can and should tackle this pandemic, this crisis, in a way that does not just bail out the billionaires and bail out big industry and big business. And it is incumbent upon us to do that, because there will be no full recovery. There will be no sort of forward motion that is, you know, putting us in a position of strength. In fact, if we do not act, if how we resolve or address this crisis simply repeats the existing injustices and inequities, then we're actually going to come out even weaker on the other end of it. And that is, I think, a call to action in this story that we're trying to tell in this report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marisa. I just want to name like how important it has been to like put all of these things together and be able to like really give direction to just everybody watching that is thinking about like, what do I do right now, right? Like, am I going to have money to pay rent next month? Is there something I can do about it right now? And I think the call to action that we need to give a damn for our people and us take action is exactly, I feel like, the type of reminders all of us are asking for. At this point, we are going to open it up for questions and questions from the press. So if the folks from the press can please write your questions in the Q&A section. Please write your name, the outlet you're joining us from, and the question itself. As we're waiting for questions, one question that's come up, Christian has been on the worker front. Just if you could share more about what's been your personal experience and seeing the conditions happening inside your warehouse. Like, you shared about not being given protective gear. What has that experience been like? If you could share more about that.
Oh, hey. So it's been a very concerning time, and it's been a very angering time. For myself, I was actually in Spain when this thing really started kicking off. I was at a international convening of Amazon workers where we formed Amazon Workers International, when we were crafting our demands for what it is that we do in response to this as Amazon workers. But from coworkers that were inside the warehouse, there was so much fear and so much anger because Amazon was not caring about our lives. We always have known that they don't care about us. They just view us as replaceable. And inside, they were just operating like business as usual. They were just, continuing, if anything, increasing the speed of work because now that everyone is staying at home, people are ordering more stuff from Amazon. And so that would look like, more, faster walking back and forth. That would look like more people going into the same cell to move, the bags or the boxes or whatever. That would mean more people like, just scanning things faster. And it just means more interaction, more being closer together, and management being more on us about moving faster. And this during a time of like crisis, it was ridiculous. And there's so many people also that are immunocompromised, have lupus, have diabetes, have all sorts of things. And then management did not even tell workers like right when they knew that there was a positive coronavirus case. So it's just like an atmosphere of fear, of anger, of just frustration that Amazon has not even given people the choice to decide whether to go in or not, the educated choice. And then they offer quarantine pay, and they say, oh yeah, if you're in this situation, we'll give you 2 weeks of quarantine pay. But then people are denied it. It's created very, very difficult situations for people.
Thank you so much, Christian, for sharing more. I mean, this is just, I think the piece around the fear, I mean, I don't think our folks are showing up to work being happy about that. It's just that they have no choice but to show up to work, even though it means that they're risking their lives. And we have a question from Lucy Diabolo from Teen Vogue. And Lucy wants to know if we have any insight this is playing out across age groups. More generally, if there's any age demographics within the workforce that we want to share more about. So I'm gonna ask Rosa to start answering that question, and then if Marisa or Yanira also want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, what we know in our industry is that the median age is around 35. We know that within the Latino workforce of that pie, right, it tends to slant younger. So a lot of the workers right now that are still actively working or that have been recently unemployed are younger, and a lot of them are heads of very new families. So, you know, for us, the issue has come up in folks really being fearful of exposing very young children to COVID-19. That was actually one of the motivating factors for one of our workers that participated in a work stoppage in Massachusetts. He was one of 17,000 workers that walked off the job after the governor of Massachusetts decided to not close down non-emergency construction. And so because of that, they stopped working. And so our member, Kenny, basically said, you know, he has an 8-month newborn child at home, and just can't, yes, they need the money, but can't justify risking exposing his family to work on a site that, while his particular crew is practicing all the safety precautions they can, nobody else on the site is. And so it's kind of for naught, right? Because you're only as secure or as safe as the person working next to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rosa. Unless Yanira has anything to add, we have 3 more questions, so I want to definitely get through them. Yanira, is there something else you want to add? I know Marisa said that she had nothing else.
Okay. No, I just want to bring attention to another one related to that question. It is how difficult and challenging it is for Latino families to have the social distance. I mean, as Latino, we live in multi-generations in households, and that's very difficult. So the concern that we not only getting sick when we have to go to work to pay that rent or to bring food to the table, it's also we coming back, and not only the children that it happens to be that we say can probably, it's very bad for them, but we bring it to our grandparents and everybody that we live. So social distancing for our community is a privilege. It's very difficult to achieve that. So let's have that in mind as well. And that's a big effect in our communities.
Thank you, Yanira. We have another question from Brendan O'Connor. He's freelancing. The question is for anyone that would like to answer it. How do you balance the need to respond to people's immediate needs in this crisis? For example, paying rent, finding masks, paying for groceries, and thinking about the big picture of how and why this is happening. Marisa, Christian, either of you want to share your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I'm not sure if it's like from an organizing perspective or from a policy, but I mean, I think that, you know, we've been debating over the last period of time pretty big ideas in terms of politics in this country and solutions. We've been debating Medicare for all, elimination of student debt, a Green New Deal. And, you know, and then we have this situation where, yes, you have like an immediate kind of burning point. I think, you know, the reality is like when you have to address the burning issues. But I think when we address those issues, it's about how are we talking about it and why do those problems exist? And how can we view like the immediate action that we take as connected or moving us in the direction of more permanent, substantial, bold solutions that are needed as well. And so I think you've seen that play out in the spectrum of demands in the politics of this time, specifically with relationship to Medicare for all. So you have some people saying, you know, no one should have to pay for a test. No one should have to, if someone gets sick with COVID-19, they should not be afraid to go to the doctor because they can't afford it. All those things, even if you were to sort of land on those demands or those particular problems being solved, you know, I think it's important to make a connection to the more permanent, bold, big solution. And so it's a little bit of both. And so I think we have to like push as far as we can, like get as much as we can, and then continue to talk about like the sort of foundational long-term piece, you know, with the hope that you're getting closer.
Thank you, Marisa. We have Shaylee Alfaro from Univision, y a ella le gustaría escuchar si alguien podría hacer esto en español para que lo tenga por video también, sobre cuáles son los retos más importantes para la comunidad latina en este momento, específicamente para los trabajadores, y cuál es el mayor temor que enfrentan todos los días cuando van al trabajo. Así que, Yanira, ¿podrías contestar esta pregunta en español?
Sí, bueno, gracias por la pregunta. Yo creo que es una variedad. Yo creo que en general todos tenemos miedo por nuestra salud, nuestra familia, nuestras comunidades, pero por supuesto también enfrentamos el reto de cómo vamos a poder trabajar. La realidad es que los trabajadores latinos no tienen el suficientemente ahorro o solvencia económica en este momento como para poder decir o darse el lujo, el privilegio de decir no voy a trabajar, ¿verdad? Por 1 o 2 semanas realmente vivimos cheque a cheque. Esa es la realidad. Y dentro de nuestra comunidad tenemos aquellos en mucha más desventaja, que son personas indocumentadas que ni siquiera van a recibir la ayuda que ha sido ya aprobada por el Congreso debido a su estatus. Entonces, esto por supuesto preocupa. Entonces, usted tiene que tomar, nuestra comunidad todos los días tiene que levantarse y tomar la decisión, voy a trabajar, me expongo, ¿verdad? Y hago el sacrificio de no tener cómo pagar. Ya sabemos nosotros, por números que tenemos, de que nuestra comunidad no tiene acceso a salud médica, ¿verdad? Un 50% no goza de esto. Una cantidad muy grande decide irse a trabajar y decide ir al doctor ya como la última opción, ya cuando están bastante graves. De por sí también sabemos que tenemos varias enfermedades que están preexistentes, y todo esto es la preocupación. Así que cuando nosotros decimos que realmente nuestra comunidad en este momento está decidiendo entre proveer techo y casa a su familia o salvar su vida, no tenemos opción. Entonces, y no estoy diciendo que todos y cada uno de los latinos o todos y cada uno de los indocumentados, pero sí un gran número. Y esto no podemos mentir, eso lo muestran todos los estudios que hemos leído. Entonces, eso es lo que estamos tratando, y por supuesto estamos dándole salida, por supuesto estamos haciendo esfuerzos, y una de nuestras demandas de tener un paquete que nos incluya a todos se basa a eso, a poder dar una respuesta, donde la gente no tenga que escoger o como o me muero o me enfermo.
Muchas gracias, Yanira. And we have one last question from Ariel Zimmerman from HDP Podcast. The question is, how do you think this pandemic will impact the 2020 elections? Marisa, would you answer that question?
Sure. I think it's going to be probably the #1 topic in the debate leading up to the 2020 elections. We are seeing and will continue to see, I think, that it's dramatically going to change how candidates campaign, how we reach voters, how we speak to voters. And then I think the huge question is what's going to happen with the literal voting process. In terms of, I mean, we already had issues before this around voter suppression and, intervention in the democratic systems and hacking and whatnot. So you have that in addition to a situation where people are in a position where they have to grapple with, should I participate in this election and cast my vote, or do I risk getting, or do I, make sure that I'm staying home and staying healthy? And so there's going to be a huge, I think, question around that, especially as we learn or understand that what we're learning about this virus is that it's seasonal and that there may be a drawdown in the next few weeks to months, but that there will be a resurgence of the virus in the fall. So it gives us a little bit of time, but it's absolutely a political fight that needs to happen now. We can't lose sight of it. And that's why that's one of the demands that we have. And, you know, there will be, you know, a lot of communities that are impacted in many ways, like across the board around this. But I think it's had and is having and will continue to have a very, very dramatic impact on the election.
And we actually have one last question, and when we have time, so we're going to go for it. This question comes from Edward Moreno from The Hill. Some members of Congress, including leaders of the Hispanic caucus and Black caucus, have called out the inequities in healthcare among these communities as it relates to COVID-19. Have you found their actions, the actions from these politicians adequate? That's the question for our panelists. I'm gonna actually ask everyone to answer that question if you like. And Christian, I would definitely love to hear your voice on this question too. Do you think what congressional representatives have been already doing is adequate enough?
Definitely not. I mean, we're living through crisis. We're living through pandemic. Like, Black and brown people are putting our lives in danger. Going into work, we're disproportionately feeling the consequences of COVID-19. We already have all of these predisposals to disease, or our health is already poor. And you know, I've seen some Congress people step up. I've seen some politicians step up to support the struggles of workers. You know, Bernie Sanders was raising the fight of Amazonians United. But I haven't seen it, you know, from all the you know, all the Latinx and Black Congress people. They could be doing a lot more. Right now that, you know, Amazon has been retaliating against us, you know, they could be calling they could be calling Bezos into some sort of congressional hearing. You know, they could be pushing the National Labor Relations Board to actually be, you know, prioritizing our claims, and making Amazon respect us as essential workers. They need to get a lot more creative, and they need to get, you know, get behind those workers who are fighting, and actually do, you know, everything in their power. I haven't really seen enough.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, I think no. And generally the response is no. Like, I think naming the problem is definitely a first step. Naming how the problem itself is impacting communities at very disproportionate levels is a step. But at the end of the day, you know, naming the problem and not resolving it is just not compatible, right? And so, what we're experiencing as we're advocating for our membership and as we're advocating for our industry as a whole is that, you know, for the politicians is that you're only a champion if you are willing to speak out and take action when it's not the popular thing to do. And what we're seeing is that too many of the politicians we assumed were, I'll speak for us as labor, on the side of labor, are too quick to negotiate away very, very, very crucial things that are impacting workers in real life, in real time. And that's on both sides of the aisle. And so I think for us, it's a wake-up call of like, there's no more writing blank checks to support politicians that say they're worker-friendly or champions for workers' rights unless they put their money where their mouth is. And we're writing that all the way to the presidential election in November and beyond. Because I think right now our members are seeing who is willing to play political games with their lives and who's actually willing to push for better conditions across the board. I think for us, it's part of like, we have to be working towards a longer term solution and an alternative across multiple different industries, across multiple different kind of landscapes out there. But I think it's also about accountability, and there has to be a reckoning. there has to be a reckoning that holds responsible every single person that did not take action to save lives, because that's what's happening. Like, as a result of cowardice or as a result of preserving your own self-interest, self-preservation, at the political level, people are losing their lives. And that just can't stand. And that's from the politicians to the general contractors to even the smallest contractor that put workers at risk. Like, all those people have to be held accountable if we're going to build from here a better reality for all workers and their families and the communities that they're a part of.
Bueno, la pregunta es si las acciones que han tomado algunos legisladores de los caucuses latinos y afroamericanos creemos que ha sido suficiente o adecuadas. Yo creo que han sido importantes, pero yo creo que lo que estamos haciendo aquí o que el reporte quiere hacer es básicamente decir que esto no es solo de un lado. O sea, no solo estamos hablando de que es la salud la única situación que nos ha llevado a que seamos el segundo grupo que más muertes ha tenido. Lo que estamos enfocando aquí realmente es de que es totalmente estructural y que si solo empezamos a tener conversaciones solo de un lado o superficiales sin realmente avanzar en por qué hemos llegado acá, y el reporte lo dice, ¿no? El hecho de no tener salud, el hecho de tener trabajos que pagan muy poco, el hecho de no tener ahorros, el hecho de no tener cómo jubilarnos, todo eso ha creado a llevarnos que en este momento somos los más impactados. Entonces es cierto que es importante lo que están haciendo, pero tienen que hacer más. Ya Rosa lo decía. Ahorita es de quién va a poder no solo hablarlo, pero va a poder hacerlo y entender esto. Lo que nosotros decimos, que cuando, digamos, la mayoría de trabajadores blancos se enferman de una gripa, nuestra comunidad agarra una neumonía. Y eso quiere decir que terminamos en un hospital. Y eso quiere decir que nos afecta en nuestra casa, en nuestra economía, en nuestros trabajos y por ende en nuestra familia. Entonces, hay que entender y hay que seguir demandando que los políticos entiendan de que sí es cierto, un remedio lo necesita la nación, pero que hay grupos, y nosotros los latinos somos parte de este grupo, que necesitamos aún más, puesto que empezamos con una ya crisis que nos estaba mortificando.
Echo check what folks have said in terms of the congressional level, but just something I would add is that, you know, speaking to Christian's point around just like they could do more beyond speak out, there's all these creative measures that could be taken. I think one thing that we should be talking more about is the role of local elected officials and state elected officials. I think that's where this is going as this money gets moved out, and whatever is passed in terms of release at the federal level, it will then go to the state level. And there is, I think, where we do have strong allies and means to actually come up with those creative mechanisms. There's funds that are being created, that have been created to cover folks who are excluded. There are people trying to, you know, come up with ways to be able to meet basic needs that folks have, and folks are collaborating. And so I think actually in the how do we move forward from this, there is a ton of opportunities with collaboration and work, and also challenging local elected officials and state elected officials to do more in this time. And then as those examples build, you know, how do we move them up and push them at the federal congressional level? All the while, we need to continue to hold their feet to the fire as well.
Well, thank you, everyone. This is, I think a lot of folks have been wanting to go further in this conversation. So I want to thank everybody again. First of all, LCLAA and Mijente for co-authoring this report and coming together, combining powers in this moment to really push forward, right? And agitate us to take action while we're also taking care of each other next door, our families. And so thank you, Yanira, president of LCLAA, Rosa Lozano, lead organizer with IUPAD, Christian in Chicago, Amazon worker fighting every day, and Marisa Franco, director of Mijente. And thank you all of the press and everybody watching. You know, this is a call to action. We don't want this report to be in your drive, or if you print it out in your desk, ahí con arañas and you know, dust. This was to just give you the tools to fight. And so thank you everybody for watching, and you know, la lucha sigue, everyone.